Attention all you New Yorkers. Excuse me, taxi.
Okay, man, we're looking around.
This is the 77 WABC minicast.
So we'll continue our discussion. Mondami AOC, anti-Semitic tail now wagging the entire Democratic Party dog. Communism and anti-Semitism are close cousins. All of this, by the way, from our Fox Business Show, 4 to 5 p.m. every night. You can read this stuff in the New York Sun, by the way. I'll put a little plug in for the New York Sun. And my belief that anti-Semitism is the root of Mondami socialism. I know the socialism economics are bad enough, but in a sense, that's too easy. What makes this just awful, damaging, corrosive, demoralizing, is the anti-Semitism, hatred of Jewish people, bigotry, which I think is the animating, driving force behind these people. They talk about it all the time. Anyway, we're going to talk to my pal David Webb, Fox News contributor to the David Webb Show on Sirius XM, longtime friend. We have an APB out for Marc Thiessan. Are we calling him, or maybe Susan will find him? I don't know. David, welcome, my friend.
Anytime.
You know, Thiessan made a good point the other night on the show, on the TV show, about how socialism is the near cousin to anti-Semitism. Very interesting point throughout history. But in general, I don't know which is worse. I think, to be honest with you, the hatred and the bigotry of anti-Semitism is worse. I loved what the president said yesterday at Ralph Reed's conference. And, hatred spreads, David. It spreads. I mean, it just metastasizes and undermines all of our values. I mean, that's the problem.
Beyond the hatred, there's the death count, the death toll that comes with both of those systems. There's a history that people don't often pay attention to, Larry, and that's in the Middle East. One, you've had Nazis who tried to work with the Grand Mufti of Jerusalem and others from World War II forward. But there is also a history of socialism and communism that worked its way into some quarters of the Middle East. They combine. It's a red, green, and now blue, because that's the Democrat color, but it's a red, green, and blue axis of evil. The anti-Semitism is worse in a way because of its effect in many ways, but in a way because its effect on a group of people and the percentage that have been murdered by different regimes and have been cast aside by many because of it is worse. The death toll of communism, even in its since the Soviet Union and Mao and Venezuela, Cuba, Cambodia, and all the others, yes, that's over 100 million according to good estimates. But the percentage of Jews that have been murdered as a result of hatred is significantly more. And to Mamdani, he preys on it. I watch, like you do, the different things he says and how he says it, the groups he plays to, and the people he puts in place in his administration. And I agree with you, and this is based on just the analysis of these people. The anti-Semitism is the core of this because that's more important right now. In the end, should either one of them win or become the leading whatever, well, the biggest failure, I guess is the way to put it, they will eat each other because they can't coexist. You can't have a theocratic and a politically autocratic regime working together.
You know, it's the historical context is very interesting. It goes back to Nazism and it goes back to Mein Kampf, which became a favorite of Palestinians down through the years. You remember our pal George Gilder? You know George Gilder. He's written a lot about this. And, Hitler dies, and, of course, thankfully, but Hitler's book, Mein Kampf, lives on and becomes a favorite of Palestinians. a perennial bestseller in the Arab world. And, of course, it's virulent anti-Semitism, but this stuff is picked up by the Osama bin Ladens of the world. Ahmadinejad, the old Iranian president, used to talk and quote from it. And that's where your socialism comes in from, Nazism and socialism. So it's just like history repeats itself. Look, I don't want any of it. The point is we don't want any of this stuff. And
it destroys society.
That's right.
Entirely. And people can look this up. It's very easy to find on the web. The Grand Mufti of Jerusalem during World War II, working with the Nazis, formed the first Nazi brigade in the Middle East. And out of that, by the way, you bring up Ahmadinejad as a point to note, and a lot of scholars agree on this. When you look at the Iranian army, whether the IRGC element, the Al-Quds force, or the Artesh, and you look at how they march, look very closely, and then put them side by side with Nazis, because that's what was imposed in the Middle East and built from there to build these brigades. So when you see that, you see not just the historical context, but an eerie similarity between them that carries on to today.
So where's the leadership of the Democratic Party? Where's Chuck Schumer? Trump mockingly calls him a Palestinian, but reality is, he's a lifelong career politician who is of the Jewish faith, and he is saying he has no criticism of Mandami and the anti-Semitic followers. Now, the Socialist Party, I don't know, the Democratic Party is becoming socialist. Okay, that's bad enough. But the hatred and bigotry of anti-Semitism is even worse. It spreads. Look, we fought hard for civil rights for blacks and browns and Jews and everybody, David. I was always part of the Jack Kemp wing of the Republican Party.
Yeah.
And that's one of the things that this so offends me about this anti-Semitism and the fact that people aren't fighting it. Kemp would have gone crazy if he were around today. What's wrong with
Schumer? He
all right,
bears
we have
examination in this way, and I've watched him for a long time. And Chuck Schumer is he's a career coward and a career politician in one. He does whatever keeps him there. It's an amoral approach. I have a lot of friends, as you do, in the Jewish community, senior people who've been there a long time, and they see Schumer for what he is, that he is literally not a Jew before he is a politician. And you don't need to choose your religion or your ethnic heritage over everything else. But what he is he is a politician who will do whatever he wants. He's a coward. He's a liar. His contradictions don't matter because they're all lies. It's just tracking how he does things. And in this case, he needs to play with the Mamdani, Chevalier, Avila wing. When it was his turn back, you remember this decades ago, he was with Charlie Rangel. And when it was the time, he was with Jerry Nadler. Schumer does that. And that points to why socialism and anti-Semitism can be more prevalent in the Democrat Party, because that reflects a lot of their politicians. Whatever comes along in the moment, they do it, then they throw it under the bus for the next thing. We saw Barack Obama do that. Very well done, cleverly, politically. I'll give him credit for that. But he threw his white Kansas grandparents under the table, his white mother, under the table in the Philadelphia speech to go play footsie with Jim Clyburn to get the Carolina votes together and get the black vote in line for his first election run. This is what they do, and it is something that is prevalent in politics on the left side. I'm not saying there haven't been elements on the right. I like you. Jack Kemp was a great man.
Let me bring in Marc. By the way, I just want, as an aside, I like Charlie Rangel. He was a friend of mine.
He was likable.
He did some very good things. And by the way, I know Chuck Schumer down through the years. I know him. We disagree on politics, but I don't know why he doesn't want to speak up. We had this APB and found Marc Thiessan, who was a former White House chief speechwriter and Washington Post columnist and a great Fox News contributor. Marc, welcome, buddy. You were the one. I don't know if you we quoted you. We played your tape last night on the TV show, and you said that anti-Semitism was the cousin to socialism, which I thought was just...
It is.
I know. I totally know. And David Webb and I have been talking about that, and I went back and looked at some things. You're dead right. But anyway, go ahead, expand on that one.
Well, I mean, if you go back to the Soviet Union, who were we fighting for? Who was Ronald Reagan fighting for? The refuseniks,
yep.
The Jews who they weren't allowing to emigrate. It was Natan Sharansky, and who was in the Gulag, celebrating when someone passed him a article in Pravda that Ronald Reagan had called the Soviet Union an evil empire. The left, the far left, and the far right hate Jews.
Right.
The Nazis hated the Jews, the Soviets hated the Jews, and oppressed them. So there's a long history of ties between anti-Semitism and socialism. But I'll tell you, I think we need to recognize there is anti-Semitism across the political spectrum on the right and the left. In America, at least, it differs because on the right it's a fringe phenomenon, right? It's the Nick Fuenteses of the world. It's the Groypers, on the neo-Nazis, the KKK, right? On the left, it's a mainstream phenomenon for them. It's AOC, it's Rashida Tlaib, they're in their congressional caucus and welcomed in their congressional caucus. You don't see the KKK marching at Harvard. You do see the anti-Semitic left, the pro-Hamas left, marching at Harvard, and they're now adding to their ranks with these anti-Semites that they're electing in New York and other places around the country. The anti-Semites are welcome in the Democratic Party, and it's turning the party on its head because they're now pandering to this anti-Semitic base. That hates the Jews, that hates Israel, and they're afraid to nominate, a moderate Jew for president, like Josh Shapiro. Let's say, I don't think he has a chance in heck of becoming the Democratic nominee if he decides to run. But we have to watch that as conservatives and look and say, this is why it's so important to not allow the Groypers into the mainstream of the movement. You keep hearing, no enemies on the right is this mantra that we get from some factions. No, I've got enemies on the right. the Candace Owens is my political enemy.
Yes.
Nick Fuentes is my political enemy,
yes.
And Tucker Carlson for platforming Nick Fuentes, he's my political enemy too. These are people we have a big tent. And I'm a fusionist. Going back to the Bill Buckley days of the National Review, we have a wide swath of libertarians, traditional conservatives, all the rest of it. There is no room in my tent for anti-Semites.
And
I think this
when you were on the show. Hang on one second. I want to make this plain. Then we have to take a quick commercial break. Marc, when you were on the show with Ben Domenech,
yeah.
Remember the point that I made, and you stimulated this point. Bill Buckley threw the anti-Semites out of the conservative movement. It was principally the John Birchers, but not only the John Birchers. I mean, he did that in the late 50s and 60s, and he was right.
Yeah,
he was exactly right. So the same thing has to happen now. But I just, look, I want to make we're WABC Radio. We're based in New York. I've known Chuck Schumer a very long time. We disagree on politics, no question about that. But I don't want to make it personal. I want to open the door. Mr. Schumer has an opportunity, Senator Schumer, to just blast the Mandamis of the world and Mandami and their anti-Semitism. If the Democratic Party is going to become the anti-Israel party, is that what's happened here? It's incredible to me. And, no one's called him on it more than Donald Trump. He's called him out repeatedly. All right, let me take a break. We'll come back and talk about this stuff. Marc Thiessan, Fox News contributor, my great pal David Webb, also Fox News contributor. Much more on the corrosive effect of Mandamiism. I'm Kudlow. We'll be right back.
Larry Kudlow.
We'll find out